nice presentation, 4 from our experts and 4 from our delegates. So we started with Dr. Ramesh, who spoke about protected areas management. Then on ecotourism, Dr. Valeria. Then challenges in protected areas management by Dr. Sahidul Islam. Then research in protected area, a very good presentation by Professor Sain Gupta. Then we had 4 delegate presentation by Dr. Muhammad Umar, and then from India, Doreen Chand Singh, and from Iran, Ms. Elmira, and from Ukraine, Dr. Tulena. So now I would now request our chair, Professor Ngozi, for her final remarks. Over to you, Professor Ngozi.
Hello, everyone again. Honestly, I've really enjoyed these presentations. I particularly thought I would be here. I didn't see myself leaving, actually. Besides, I'll get in Dr. Hasrat's trouble if I do. So I want to particularly take note of the fact that the presentations have cut across disciplines and have also cut across countries. So that tells me something. It tells me that for us to be able to solve global problems, especially problems with respect to the environment, then we have to continually break down ethnic and racial silos. That's how it's going to work. I mean, there've been really, really brilliant presentations. Another thing I have gotten the trend of the is that when you have good research, when you have thorough research, the findings of the research would influence policy, and that would also influence law, because we've seen experts come to present, we've seen the delegates, we've seen the lawyers, like the very last speaker, Dr. Tulina. I mean, this is something that's very brilliant, and I want to congratulate Dr. Hasrat and his team. Two themes that have actually cut across the presentations of today. The first one is that when you effectively manage protected areas, you are indirectly, effectively achieving sustainable development in any given area. This is because the environmental benefits that come from protected area management and even cultural benefits, they're all tightly linked, closely linked to one another. I particularly gathered this from Dr. Valerie's presentation and Professor Sain Gupta's presentation. Now, Dr. Valerie's presentation, now I was intrigued, breathtaking scenery of that Al Ravine, which they call Little Switzerland. It's beautiful, and to think that that kind of place is protected and is managed, I think that's an achievement for Ukraine itself. And also the mountain ecosystems discussed by Dr. Sain Gupta, and how he linked the effect of the mountains on water, on clean air, on recreation, on spiritual values. I mean, what else do we need really to achieve sustainable development? And also link that to the ecotourism presentation by Dr. Valerie. So this is very important. Another theme that cuts across the presentations is the importance of locally based initiatives of indigenous people. I have a research bias for the role of indigenous people in environmental protection. So this was particularly striking for me. You cannot effectively manage these areas, protected areas or whatever areas for environmental benefits, if you do not significantly involve local people, if you do not significantly involve community members. The chain of the stakeholders is not complete without them, because they are the custodians of some of these cultures that we are trying to implement to protect the environment. So these are the two themes that run now for my on the presentations. On Dr. Islam's presentation particularly, I was very happy about his discussion of the IUCN categories for protected areas. And when he started talking about the challenges, now there are several remarks. I talked about the delicate balance that we need to strike between the pressures on natural resources and
Professor Ngozi, we are missing your audio. So if you can switch off your camera, I think the bandwidth will be better. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, so I said at the beginning, I remember talking about the delicate balance between the pressure on natural resources and the protection of these natural resources. And one of the challenges that Dr. Islam mentioned was the population pressure, which also touches on this balance as I'm talking about. Now, another critical point or critical challenge which he mentioned is the effective governance and management of these protected areas. And now this takes me back to the point about locally based initiatives of community members or indigenous people. It is very, very important to involve community members. It doesn't matter what country or what continent it is, Africa, Asia, Australia, wherever it is, Europe, community members are the custodians. They are the first people, they are the traditional people in that area. They are the people who should actually be consulted, your first consultant, when it comes to effective management of protected areas. Now I move to a particular comment I have on Professor Singh Gupta's presentation, where he talked a lot, actually. He gave a lot of research results on mountains, and I found that very intriguing. Some of them, honestly, I couldn't understand some technicalities, but that's why I'm not an expert in everything anyway. But then something I got is that there's a lot there's a lot of research on the mountain ecosystems. But my question, which kept nagging in my mind, is how have these research findings influenced policy, especially in the Eastern Himalaya? How has it influenced policy? I'm very curious to know about this. And also, one other thing he raised is the vulnerability of mountain ecosystems to climate change is an area that has been scarcely researched. I mean, this is very critical. What steps are we taking to improve research in this area? These are the kind of areas that should be funded and should be taken into consideration when we're talking about donor funding. Then to the delegate presentations, which I also enjoyed very much, and I particularly enjoyed Dr. Omar's presentation on ethnobotany because, of course, it has to do with locally based conservation initiatives. I also enjoyed the fact that he talked about how the research results are being translated into policy step by step. They already have a database, an ethnobotany database, which country should emulate because we have a lot of activities on traditional medicine. And Dr. Singh talked about the advantages and disadvantages of deforestation. Clearly, the disadvantages of deforestation the advantages of deforestation clearly outweigh the disadvantages. There's no doubt about that, and then it also struck me that deforestation in Indonesia is decreasing. Why is it decreasing? What can we learn from that experience? What can other countries learn from that experience? Because I'm sure Indonesia has just as much needs for natural resources as every other country does. So what are they doing to reduce that trend of deforestation in the area? And also thank you, Dr. Tulina and Dr. Emira for your presentations. Dr. Elmira, I know that I noted something about your presentation where you talked about the behavioral and psychological aspects of this human-wildlife conflict. For me, I think that's something that's very critical because one area of my research is always ethics. Why do people do the things that they do? Why do they act the way they do? So to be able to get any logical answers or conclusions, you have to understand why certain things are being done. So the behavioral and the psychological aspect of this research or the conflict between humans and wildlife is very, very critical. Again, I want to really, really thank all the presenters, and I want to reiterate the fact that theory and practice needs to be merged, now more than ever before. I mean, we need to keep closing that gap between theory and practice. That's why we need more forum like this, where researchers and practitioners come together from different disciplines, from different areas, to rub minds together, to interact, to understand how they can work together to achieve solutions to existing global problems. Again, I want to thank all the presenters, and I thank all the organizers for this very, very interesting session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ngozi, for summing up the session so well, and highlighting the key points from each and every presentation that was paid this year, in this session. So that brings us to the end of the session, and I would hand it over to Dr. Hasrat for any other announcement.
Thank you, Professor Ngozi, for chairing wonderfully the session. Professor Ngozi is the senior professor in Nigeria of the environmental law ethics. She is also the deputy editor-in-chief in one of our journal, which is Environmental Law and Policy. So we are associated for a long, long time. And today I met her on this platform. It was really nice. Also, I'm just quickly giving one more remark on, Dr. Ramesh. I told in the previous session that he is my very, very old friend. We were together working in Great Himalayan National Park, and he is a very grounded scientist. And of late, he is connected with the British Columbia University. And I remember in 19, we were talking when he went to British Columbia, and he was there. So Dr. Valerie, we have not met, but I know your institution, your colleagues, and everyone. He is a wonderful person. Shahidul Islam, we are friends. So we know very well each other. Professor Sen Gupta, we will have to interact further. Although I have very much interacted with the Vice Chancellor, your founder Vice Chancellor, Professor Mauli. So he has coordinated this very well. I must thank him. Other presenters, I know Dr. Umar, he was with us in one session, moderating that. Yes, Elvis, I remember you. How are you? Meeting after a long time, okay? We have had the sessions together in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, and we had interacted a lot. So thank you so much, everyone, especially the chairs and chair and co-chair. So this session goes to the end. And now after 15 minutes, no, sorry, we have how much time? 45 minutes, almost 44 minutes. We have the next session to start. So this time, the platform will be centrally unmute. So if someone is interested to talk